Hello, I'm Susan Woods, your Black Lives Matter fraud investigator. Thank you so much for your time. We are continuing with the series investigating the Form 990 information return that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation submitted for the year 2020. Today, we're going to examine Part 4, Checklist of Required Schedules. So let's get started. What is the Form 990? The Form 990 Information Return, or Form 990, is an annual report the IRS requires all 501c3 nonprofit organizations to submit to provide information about revenues and expenses for the prior year. The type of Form 990 nonprofit organizations submit depends on the type of nonprofit organization and the amount of revenues and assets the nonprofit organization has on hand or on record. Form 990s are due by the 15th day of the 5th month after the fiscal year ends. For example, if the fiscal year ends on December the 31st, then the Form 990 is due by May 15th the next year. The primary purpose of the Form 990 is to demonstrate transparency and accountability. If the nonprofit team fails to file the Form 990 for 3 consecutive years, the IRS automatically revokes the 501c3 nonprofit status. Form 990 schedules. Nonprofit leaders use schedules on an as-needed basis to provide additional information to explain unique services. A schedule is merely an extra document to show information about unusual things. For example, if you are a church, then you would have to provide a schedule to explain the unusual or different things your church provides that a regular nonprofit would not provide. If you have a homeless shelter, there are specific schedules that you have to complete to provide additional information about how you are operating your homeless shelter, things along those lines. So let's examine, or we're going to examine, the Black Lives Matter Form 990, Part 4, Checklist of Required Schedules. And then I'm going to jump over to the IRS.gov website to show you different types of schedules. So we're going to look at the Form 990 for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation for the year 2020, specifically examining Part 4, the checklist of required schedules. And then we're going to go directly over to the IRS.gov website to look at the different schedules types. So I'm going to pause my screen so that I can make the transition over to where I need to be. Thank you for your patience while I make that transition. And again, I'm going right to the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's Form 990 information return to the Part 4 section, checklist of required schedules. So let me go ahead and reshare my screen to be in the right location. And here we are. So this is the public inspection copy for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's Form 990 information return for the year 2020. And we are looking at the Part 4 checklist of required schedules. And to save time, I've only highlighted the lines that I believe are red flags or designate red flags. So I'm going to scroll down to line number 3. Line number 3, I believe, is a red flag, and I'm going to read it. Did the organization engage in direct or indirect political campaign activities on behalf of or in opposition to candidates for public office? If yes, complete Schedule C, Part 1. The person completing the Form 990 answered no for that particular question. And it's a red flag because the answer should be yes. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation hosted a banquet on behalf of the Joe Biden campaign. So that is definitely an example of engaging in direct or indirect political campaign activities on behalf of a candidate for public office. Again, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation hosted a banquet to raise money for the Joe Biden campaign when he was running for president. In that case, this organization should have completed a Schedule C, Part 1. The next red flag that I identified is on line 14A. 14A asked the question, did the organization maintain an office, employees, or agents outside of the United States? The answer they provided is no, but that is not correct. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation has an office in Toronto, Canada. They spent $6 million on a mansion to provide office space for the team and for the team to host retreats. So the answer to that question should have been yes. Okay. Another thing that I meant to mention before I slide down to or scroll down to the next red flag is with 14B. If they answered no in 14A, how could they answer yes in 14B? Because 14B reads, did the organization have aggregate revenues or expenses of more than $10,000 from grant making, fundraising, business, investment, and program services activities outside the United States, or aggregate foreign investments valued at $100,000 or more? If yes, complete Schedule F, Parts 1 and 4. So how could they say they raised money outside of the United States if they didn't maintain an office outside of the United States to receive the money? They raised money for program services outside of the United States. That's what they indicate as a yes in 14B. But 14A stated they don't operate outside of the United States. So that's a red flag. Let me continue scrolling down to show you the next red flag that I identified. The next red flag I identified is with question or line 27. Did the organization provide a grant or other assistance to any current or former officer, director, trustee, key employee, creator or founder, substantial contributor or employee thereof, a grant selection committee member, or to a 35% controlled entity, including an employee thereof, or family member of any of these persons? If yes, complete Schedule L, Part 3. They answered no. The correct answer is yes, because Patrisse Coolers, who was serving as the only employee of the nonprofit organization at the time that this Form 990 was created in 2020, and as the sole board member, paid her brother over $600,000 to be a security manager, and paid her ex-boyfriend and the father of her son over $300,000 to work as a videographer. So you have almost $1 million that Patrisse Coolers paid her brother and her ex-boyfriend and father of her son for positions that she just made up. So that's a red flag. That is a red flag because they represent family members of a person that's the creator or founder, a director, a key employee. She meets all of those qualifications. Because again, she was the only board member and the only employee at the time in 2020 managing $90 million. She brought on Shalimaya Bowers later on at the end of 2020, just so that he could just to give the appearance that someone other than herself operated a nonprofit organization for the majority of 2020. So that's a red flag, line 27. The next red flag that I want to highlight, and the last red flag for this section, is line 36. Section 501c3 organizations. Did the organization make any transfers to an exempt non-charitable related organization? To an exempt non-charitable related organization. They answered no, but the answer should be yes. Yes, because we have already examined in a series of 6 videos how the organization allocated $21.7 million among 30 LGBTQIA-led nonprofit organizations. And I would gather to think, I would think, based on our research, that approximately 90% of those organizations were non-charitable related organizations, because the majority of them did not have earned 501c3 nonprofit status that would give them that designation. So in this section, I've identified in part 4, checklist of required schedules, I have identified 4 red flags. Line 3, line 14A, line 27, and line 36. So now I'm going to transition over, pause my screen, and transition over to the IRS.gov website that I promised, so that I could show you some examples of the schedules. I want you to see what the schedules look like, and I'm going to focus in on the schedules that I listed that they were supposed to include in the Form 990 information return. So I am on the required filing Form 990 series page, and if you want to find that page, here is the path that you can follow. You will go to the home page, which is irs.gov. You will click on File. You will click on Charities and Nonprofits, and then you will click on Annual Filing and Forms, and then you would see Required Filing, Form 990 Series. So I'm going to scroll down, and you can see the different forms. You see this column that has this table that has forms and then instructions. So you see all of the different types of Form 990s, Form 990N, EZ, PF, and 990. Here are the schedules. You have a Schedule A. It's a public charity status and public support document. Schedule B, Schedule C, all the way down to Schedule R. So as you may recall, for my investigations, I believe that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation should have completed a Schedule C, because the Schedule C is for political campaign and lobbying activities. You need to share more information about those. So I'm going to click on the Schedule C so that you can see what it looks like. And each one of these schedules will look differently because they ask for different information. So this is the Schedule C for the Form 990 for the year 2022, because this is the current year. If you ever need to get schedules for prior years, there is a location for archived Form 990 information. But this is what the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation should have completed to go along with line number 3, because again, they held a banquet for the Joe Biden campaign. So this should have been completed. Now, if you don't know how to complete a schedule, or any other document for that matter, the IRS is very good about providing instructions. So here's the instructions for completing the Schedule C. So whenever you're completing a document for the IRS, I highly recommend just going ahead and downloading the instructions to go along with that particular document, because every single line in that document would have an explanation of how to complete the documents. See, for example, here's specific instructions, and then you have the different lines. Okay, and every schedule has that same type of information. The next schedule that I thought they should have completed was a Schedule F, Statement of Activities Outside the United States. So I'm going to click on Schedule F so that you can see what it looks like. And like I said, they all look differently because they are different, asking for different information. So this is what they should have completed to document how they were operating outside of the United States. Okay. Now go back, and if you don't know how to complete a Schedule F, then you just simply click on the instructions. And here they are. Same layout. You just have to find where to start getting the information that you need. The next schedule I thought they should have completed was a Schedule L, Transactions with Interested Persons. And this is the one where they should have documented the relationships that Patrisse Conculer has with her brother and with her ex-boyfriend, the father of her son. This document should have been completed. This schedule should have been completed to share information about those individuals. Okay. And if you don't know how to complete it, then again, here are the instructions. The IRS removes any excuse that we have for not doing the right thing. We just cannot say we didn't understand how to do it, because the information is provided, is laid out for you. And if you really don't understand, you can always call and ask for help. The last schedule that I thought they should have completed was the Schedule R, Related Organizations and Unrelated Partnerships is what it's called. So this is what the Schedule R looks like. And this is where they should have gone in and provided information about those donations made for organizations that were exempt but didn't have a charitable status because they didn't have 501c3 designation. So their accountant should have completed all of these schedules, in my opinion, and attached them to the Form 990 information return. And now I'm sharing you the instructions for Schedule R. Okay, so I thought that was important to share with you because I wanted you to see how to locate schedules, in case you may be wondering if your nonprofit organization needs to include an additional schedule to explain specific or unique information about your nonprofit. Or maybe you are looking at another person's Form 990, you want to know whether or not they should have included a schedule. That's why I wanted to share this with you. But I'm going to pause and we're going to wrap this class up, or wrap this presentation up. Thank you for your patience with me going back and forth the way that I have to do to get to the information. So now we're back, and we are going to look at the red flags identified in Part 4, Checklist of Required Schedules, which is on page 3 of the Form 990 information return. I found the following red flags on line 3, on line 14A, on line 27, and on line 36. Total red flags for this section, or for this part, is 4. So now with the cumulative red flags thus far, we have 20. For the heading, I identified 4, Part 1 summary 4, Part 2 signature block 2, Part 3 statement of program accomplishments 6, and Part 4 the schedules 4, for a total of 20 red flags, and we're just on page 3. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance. I'm Susan Woods, your Black Lives Matter fraud investigator. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.